takes longer to figure out the room number than to actually enjoy the work of art.
These clay tablets were accidentally discovered in 1888 at El Amarna in the record office of King Akhenaton. Clay tablets used for diplomatic correspondence between the Egyptian court, the rulers of neighboring Asiatic states, and the local governors in Syria and Palestine. The writing is cuneiform, the usual medium for international correspondence at the time, 18th dynasty, a name given to him by the workman who cleared his tomb because he resembled the village headman. The edges of the eyelids, Ka upper, also known as Sheikh el-Balad or village headman, a name given to him by the workman who cleared his tomb.
Peace, five.
Whereas still pictures are quite likely to keep the mind restless, since they thrive on information withheld. The more faithfully they represent familiar things or event, the more equivocal their revelation. Ambiguity is their natural state, because wrapped as they are in their own abridged context, they always conceal more than they show. What they reveal is understood to be lifted from an unrevealed larger field. Like Delacroix's anxious orphan, with the cause of her anxiety left untold outside the frame. And whatever action a picture pretends to depict is no more than a moment sliced from an undepicted continuum. Signs flourish in the world we know. Their context is our environment, whereas pictures are framed in mystery, fore and aft. Of course, the mystery may be trivial.
Art Deco long before I knew what it was called, since I grew up with it. Before I knew that it had a name, before I knew that the words Art Deco applied to a particular period, this was my parents' living room. This was the furniture they bought when they were married. And in fact, as a kid, I thought it was very ugly. It's only now that I can start looking at it a little bit objectively, thinking of it as a style. But because I hated the style so much, I used to be almost ashamed of it. I used to wish my parents had another kind of furniture.
It has been. And I puzzled much about this imagery. I found other examples. A woman who was a secretary who
Of course, the mystery may be trivial, as in this 18th century painting where we can't tell whether the ball is still going up or coming down. Or as in this 18th century drawing, where we shall never know whether the basket of laundry changing hands at the balcony is being picked up or delivered. But there are instances where the mind is teased by built-in ambiguity which the artist, if he knows what he's doing, exploits as a symbolic resource.
Well, I guess I race cars because I love the speed and the noise and the crowd and the girls. And of course, I love to win. And when it's all over.
In Russian language, this is ikona.
pardon me, it's a female sex organ of the Lama Huanicoe, or the Lama Lama, that is represented here, for example.
But there are instances where the mind is teased by built-in ambiguity which the artist, if he knows what he's doing, exploits as a symbolic resource. Take, for instance, this famous Michelangelo painting, a perfect foil to the simplicity of directional signs. We see a Holy Family out in the open and a vigorous action involving the child. But what is the action? Michelangelo's friend and first biographer, Giorgio Vasari, says the Madonna is handing the child to St. Joseph. He says this as though it were a matter of fact, and his assurance seemed to satisfy people for about 300 years, from 1550 to the mid-19th century. But then an alternative reading began to take hold, as though the child's destination had shifted through 180 degrees. Most writers of the past 130 years take it for granted that the Virgin is receiving the child. We are thus left with two mutually contradictory readings, this way or that, as if Michelangelo had failed to make himself clear. Yet a closer look persuades us that the indeterminacy of the action must be deliberate, for the ambivalence is contrived with great skill. If the mother's glance and the inclination of the child's head foretell a meeting in her embrace, her hands tell the opposite. No woman takes a baby into her arms with furled fingers, so that she must have just let it go. The seeming indeterminacy of the action, its interpretability in two directions, serves to lock the triad of man, woman, and child in a bond of perpetual recirculation. The ambiguity defines the meaning of child. As human progeny is both man's gift to woman and woman's to man, so the action is clued both ways. Michelangelo defines the gift in a functional ambiguity, a parental gesture precisely suspended in reciprocal giving. The painter still gives us a sign, but it's a complex sign for a multidimensional meaning, delivered by means of a perpetual oscillation between alternatives unresolved. Such irresolution or sustained ambiguity can be quite troubling to people who need things one way or the other.
In the front are two squares.
Yeah.